Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. So in this video we'll be learning how to make this beautiful dress. It has a net drape and also 3 layers of flay, as you can see on me on the screen right now. So if this is what you're interested in, please stay tuned to the end of this video as I'll be taking you through the whole cutting and sewing process. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do well to subscribe to my channel and also give this video a thumbs up. So let us get right into the tutorial. So I'm making use of this 4 yards of Ankara fabric. If you are on the bigger side or you are bigger than me, you can make use of 5 to 6 yards. And I also have this 1 yard of net for the drape. So you're going to place your fabric on fold. I'll be drafting on the fabric directly. If you are a beginner, you can try to use your pattern paper to draft it first. But for this tutorial, I'll be drafting it on the fabric directly. So I'm going to head to draw my shoulder line. So all my measurement to be starting from there. So I'm going to mark my half length, which is 16.5. I added 1 inch allowance, making 17.5. So I'm going to mark it across like so, and I'm going to extend it with my ruler to form a straight line. So that is my half length. So from there, I'm also going to mark my bust point, which is 10 inches. So I'm also going to extend the line like so. So now I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2 on the shoulder line. So for me it is 8. I marked 8 inches, and from that point I came down by 1 inch. So from that 1 inch point I came down by 8 inches for my armhole depth. So I'm going to extend that line, which is going to serve our chest line like so. So this is our chest line, this is the bust line, and then that is the half length. So now I'm going to also extend the armhole depth line. So I just marked the 8 inches for the shoulder just to form a straight line like so. So now I'm going to go in on the shoulder line by 3 inches, and then I'm going to connect with my ruler to form the shoulder slope. So we're going to draw the neckline. It's going to be a round neckline, and the neckline is a high one. So I came down by 3 inches for the neck depth, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my French curve to draw the neckline like so. Depends on how you want the neckline to be. So now we're going to measure what we have at the armhole depth, which is 8 inches. So I marked the midpoint, and on that midpoint, that's the middle, I went in by half an inch. So on the chest line, I marked my bust measurement divided by 4. So now I'm going to use my French curve to draw the armhole curve like so. And you can also use a freehand to draw the armhole curve if you don't have a French curve. So I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 4 for me, on the waistline. So from the bust line, I came down by 1 inch, and I also marked my nipple to nipple divided by 2 on that 1 inch I came down by. So on the waistline, I went in and out by half an inch. So I'm going to connect the straight line first, and then the half inch I went in and out by, I'm also going to connect it to that 1 inch I came down by. So this is that intake. So now we're going to mark all our remaining body measurements. I've marked my bust divided by 4 on my chest line already. So I just added 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So on my waist, I marked my waist divided by 4 measurement, and then I added 1 inch for the that allowance, and I added 1.5 inch for the sewing allowance. So I'm just going to use my ruler to connect the points now to form our body shape. So that's all for the drafting of the front pattern, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it out now. So for the skirt part, I'm going to be drafting the front first. So I've placed my fabric on fold. So I'm going to mark the length where you want your flay to start from the waist. For me, it is 16.5 inches. I added 1 inch, making 17.5 inches. So I'm going to extend the line like so. So anywhere you want your flay to start from, that's just few inches below the hips. So now I'm going to mark from the waist 9 inches. So I'm going to mark it across like so, and then I'm going to also extend the line like so. So this line is the hip line. That's where we'll be placing our hip measurement. So on the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurements divided by 4, and then I'm going to add 1 inch for the dart allowance, and then I added 1.5 inch for the sewing allowance. On the hip line, I'm going to mark my hip measurements divided by 4, and then I added 1.5 inches also for the sewing allowance. So at the hem, I marked my hip measurements divided by 4 as well. So from the hip measurements, I'm going to minus 1.5 inches because I want that place to be very fitted and tight a bit. Depending on how tight you want it to be, you can decide to minus 1 or half. So the remaining 1.5 inch that we marked before is going to serve as our sewing allowance. So I'm just going to connect it with my ruler like so. And then the hip to the waist area, I'm going to use my curved rule to connect it like so. So on the waist, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 4 inches for me. And then on that point, I came down by 5 inches. So on that 5 inches point, I also marked my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So at the waist, I went in and out by half an inch. So I'm just going to use my ruler to first of all draw the straight line, and then also connect the half inch I came in and out by. So that is our dart intake for the skirt. So that's all for the drafting of the front skirt. So I'm going to cut it out now. So I've gone ahead to use the front pattern to cut out the back pattern. So the only difference is I added my zipper allowance, which is 1.5 inch, and I also added a bit to the armhole area because the back is wider than the front armhole. So I just added a bit, and then for the neckline, I only came down by 1.5 inches instead of 3 inches that we used for the front. And also the skirt part, I've used the front pattern to cut out the back pattern. I also added 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance, and so every other thing is different, and I've cut out the lining for everything. So for both the upper part and the skirt part back pattern, I went in on the waist side by 0.75 inches, as you see me doing. So I'm just going to slant it downwards into the skirt side like so, and also upwards for the upper part like so. So that part that is slanted, I'm going to cut it out. So I'm doing this to avoid zip bulge. If you have been watching my tutorials and videos very well, you will realize that we do this a lot and the clothes is always coming out perfectly. So now we're going to start sewing by stitching the lining to all the pieces. So I'm going to open up the front pattern like so, and then I'm going to place my lining on the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch down the neck area first, and then I'm also going to stitch both sides. After stitching the sides, I'm going to turn it out to the right side, and then I'll sew my dart intake. So for the back pattern as well, I'm going to place my lining on the right side. So I'm going to stitch the neck on both sides, and then I'm going to turn it to the right side and also stitch my dart intake. So this is how our front pattern is looking like. As you can see, I've gone ahead to stitch my darts. Also the back pattern, I've gone ahead to stitch the lining and also the dart intake. So now I'm going to place the back pattern on the front pattern, right side facing right side like so. So we're going to stitch the shoulder. So I'm going to open it up like so. Make sure the midpoint is touching each other like so. So I'm going to fold it like this, and then I'm going to head over to the machine and stitch down that part. I'm also going to do the same for the second shoulder, so this will give our shoulder a neat stitch. So I'm going to have to cut out my sleeve pattern, the basic sleeve pattern. As you can see, the lining is shorter than the sleeve actual length by just 1 inch. If you don't know how to draft a basic sleeve pattern, the link to the tutorial is in the description box. I have a full tutorial on that. So now I'm just going to place my lining on the right side like so, and then stitch down the hem like so, like I demonstrated with my hand. So as you can see, I have stitched the hem. So I'm just going to drag the lining up to be equal to the armhole area. So as you can see, the allowance, the 1 inch allowance that we cut out from the lining is folded already, as you can see. So I'm going to stitch the side, both sides. So this is how it is looking after stitching the sides, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it to the right side. So if you don't want to go through all the stress, you can just leave out the lining for the sleeve. You don't have to use lining, you can just fold and stitch the hem. But if you want to do it like this, you can also go ahead and do it like this, and this will give your sleeve a neat finishing and no hem line. So as you can see, it is very neat, but it's not a must to follow this method. So this is what our upper bodice is looking like. As you can see, I've stitched the shoulders neatly. So now we're going to stitch the sleeve. We're going to join the sleeve. So I'm going to place the mid part of the sleeve to the shoulder area, and then I'm going to stitch it to the armhole area, like you see me demonstrating, like so. So I'm also going to do that for the second sleeve as well. So this is what it is looking like after stitching the sleeve, as you can see. So now we'll go ahead and stitch the sides using your allowance. So I'm going to join the sides starting from the sleeve to the half length area. So this is how it is looking after stitching the sides. I've turned it to the right side. As you can see, the upper part of our dress is ready. So over to the skirt part, I'm going to open up the front skirt pattern like so, and then I'm going to place my lining on the right side. So I'm going to stitch the sides. I'm going to stitch both sides to secure the lining, and then I'll turn it to the right side and I'll sew my dart intake. So I'm also going to take the back pattern. I'm going to place my lining on the front, and then I'm going to stitch both sides, and after turning it, I'm also going to stitch the dart intake for both. So this is how the front skirt pattern is looking like after stitching the lining, and as you can see, I've stitched the dart intake. So before we go any further, we're going to stitch the drape of the front part of the skirt. So for the wideness of the drape, you can just use your hip measurements and add like 5 extra inches or 10 extra inches, depending on how much your net is, and for the length, depending on how full you want your drape to be. So now we're going to pleat the middle, as you can see, and I doubled the net so it will come out well, to show very well, because it's a plain net. So I folded it into two, so you can go ahead to fold it into two as well. So for the middle part, I can see my mid part. If you can't see it, you can just use your chalk to highlight it. So at the middle part, I'm going to pleat it like this, or should I call it fold? Yes, it is pleat. So we're going to pleat the middle side like this, and we're going to go ahead and secure it with a pin. But first of all, make sure it is well arranged, as you see me doing. The mid part is going to be closely pleated together like I'm doing. So we are securing that middle point with our pin so it does not move and it won't scatter. So we're going to stitch down that middle part later. So for the hip area or for the side, I'm also going to pleat it, as you can see me doing. I'm going to pleat it downwards, and then I'm also going to go ahead and secure that place with my pins. I'm going to secure the pleats with my pins. So I started securing with my pins. You are going to pin down each pleat like you see me doing. So I'm trying to hold this place in place so it won't scatter. So I'm going to pleat down each pleat with one pin each so it will stay in place. So I'm gonna need to secure all the plates with pin. As you can see, I used enough pin. So I measured what I have on both sides and make sure it is equal. The length of the drape depends on how long and how much you want it to be. It can be any length. So now I'm going to head over to the machine to stitch down the middle and both sides. So this is how it is looking. As you can see, I have neatly stitched down the middle part and both sides. So I'm going to cut out the excess net on both sides like so. So now we'll go ahead and join the sides of the skirt. So I'm going to place the back pattern on the front pattern, right side facing right side like so, and then I'm going to go ahead and stitch down both sides using our allowance. So this is what the skirt is looking like after stitching down both sides. As you can see, it is gradually coming together. So the next thing we want to do now is to open up the waist area of both the upper part and the skirt part like so, and then we're going to place them right side facing right side like you see me doing. So I'm going to go over to the machine now and stitch the waist area. I'm going to join it together. So this is what our dress is looking like After stitching the waist area, as you can see, our gown is coming out nice already. So now we're going to close up the back area. So I'll turn my dress to the wrong side like so. So I'm going to place my zipper, and then I'm going to mark where my zipper stops. So from there I'm going to stitch it down. So the remaining opening area for the zipper, I'm going to stitch the zipper. So this is how the back of our dress is looking like. I'm gonna to stitch the zipper neatly. So the next thing we want to do now is to draft and sew our 3-step flay. So first of all, we're going to measure what we have at the hem of the dress. So that is 18.25. That's times 2 will give us 36.5. So I'm going to cut the short flay first. So I folded my fabric into 2, then I folded it again, that's making into 4, because I want the flay to be very full without any pleating at the joining, but the flay will be full. So this is 1 2 3 4 already. So like that, I'm going to now fold it into a conical shape like so. So I made it this short because we are cutting the shorter side first, so we don't really need to waste fabric. So I'm going to use a method that is very easy. So after folding it into a conical shape like so, we now have 8 layers like so. So the flare will be very full. So remember, the measurement of the hem of our dress is 36.5 inches. So plus 2 inches for joining allowance, that's 38.5 inches. So that 38.5 divided by 8, because our fabric is in 8 folds, so that will give us 4.75. So approximately 5 inches. So I placed my tape rule to measure that 5 inches across. So I measured what we have from the top of the cone to where I marked for the 5 inches. So there we have 6 inches. So I'm just going to mark that 6 inches all around, as you see me doing, from the top of the cone. So I'm going to connect all the lines together like so. So measuring it, you can see we have that exact 5 inches. So this method is a very easy method, instead of using long method of using formulas to calculate. So the shortest flay is this one we are cutting now. So I need just 4 inches for the first flay. So I'm going to mark 4 inches and add half an inch sewing allowance for joining the lining, because we're going to be turning it with our lining. So I'm going to mark 4.5 inches all around like you see me doing. So then I'm going to connect all the points with my free hands like so. So at the upper part, I'm going to add ½ inch sewing allowance for the upper part like you see me doing. So this is a total of 5 inches. So 4 inches for the flay and the remaining 1 inch for allowance. So I'm going to cut it out now. So as you can see, we didn't waste our fabric. So this is the first step of the flay, as you can see. So I measured it all around. So we have 18 inches, and that's what we want exactly. So the same method I used in cutting the short flay, I used the same method to cut the middle one and also the last one, which is the longest one. The difference is just the length. The short one is 5 inches, the middle one is 9 inches, and the long one is just 13 inches plus 1 inch sewing allowance. So it is the same method I used to cut everything. So I have also gone to cut out the lining piece for the 3 steps of the flay. So the 2 large flays have joining. It's going to have joining at the middle, but it does not matter. The main one that will be at the top, at the front, is the shortest one, and it won't have any joining at the middle, just at the back where we'll be closing it. And the biggest flay also has this tiny joining, because the fabric was not really enough. So now we want to go ahead and stitch our lining to all the flay. So we're going to open up the flay like so. So I'm going to first of all cut out the middle to create an opening space for the joining at the back. So I'm going to open it up to the right side like so, and then I'm going to place my lining like so on the right side as well, right side facing right side. I'm going to arrange it properly. So I'm going to stitch the lining starting from that end. I'll stitch it, then I'm going to stitch it all around to the other end, and then I'm also going to stitch down the opening to close it. So for the middle piece, it's splitted into 2. So first of all, I'm going to stitch one part of the middle to join both flays together to form one. So after that, I'm going to open up the flay to the right side after stitching the middle. I'm also going to stitch the lining to join it as well, and then I'm going to place the lining right side facing right side on the flay, so we make sure the joint part is inside. After that, I'm also going to stitch all around. I'm going to stitch the hem all around and also stitch both sides opening. So for the longest flay, that's the biggest one, so the first thing I'm going to do is to join the pieces, the place that was not enough. So I'll first of all stitch it like so. So by the time I open it to the right side, it will be complete and it will form the full flay. So I'm going to stitch the other one too. I'm going to join the other one too, so it will form a full flay as well. So after stitching the pieces, I'm also going to join the middle part so it will form one, because it's also in two pieces just like the middle part. Then after that, I'm going to stitch the lining just like I stitched for the middle and the shortest one. I'm going to stitch the lining as well. So this is the 3 flares after turning it with our lining, and I'm gonna need to press it with our iron. So the next thing we want to do is to join all the flares together, so it will be easy to join it to our dress. So I'm going to open up the bigger one like so, and then the middle one, I'm going to place it like so. I'm going to arrange it accordingly, and then I'm also going to pick the smallest one and also place it on it, so it is accordingly from the smallest to the biggest. So after placing it like that, I'll make sure I arrange it well, and then I'm going to stitch down the middle like that. I'm going to secure the upper part all around like that. Make sure it is well arranged before stitching it. So this is how it is looking after stitching 3 of them together. As you can see, when it is straight, it will form a very full flare. So the next thing we want to do now is to join our flay to the hem of our dress. So I'm going to place the flay right side facing right side. So remember, we added 2 inches allowance to the flay for the joining, so 1 inch for one side and the other side. So I'm going to mark that 1 inch like so, as you see me doing. So it is after that 1 inch point I'm going to start sewing. So that 1 inch is to join the flay to each other. So from there, I'm going to stitch it after that 1 inch point. So I'm going to stitch it all around by about half an inch to secure the hem of the dress to the flay. So I'm going to stitch it round just as you see me demonstrating, all around till the other end. So this is what our gown looks like after stitching it all around. As you can see, there is 1 inch allowance left for the joining. So I'm going to place it on each other like this. Make sure all the steps are well arranged so you don't leave anyone out when you are joining it. So after arranging it very well, so we are going to head over to the machine now and stitch with our 1 inch allowance all the way down. So after stitching it down, then I'm going to go ahead and stitch that remaining opening. I'm just going to stitch it and secure it. So this is what our dress is looking like after stitching our dress to the flay. As you can see, there is no pleat at all, and that does not stop our flay from being full. So this is what our dress is looking like. So guys, thank you so much for watching to the end. This is the end of the sewing tutorial and our dress is ready. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you in my next one.